So the idea that emotions could be learned, emotions were another form of behavior that were subject to what you experienced in your environment, was started really better understood in the early 20th century when the behaviorists, and in particular one behaviorist, John B. Watson, started to do a number of experiments with children and their acquisition of emotional responses. So we're about to go to a video. Before we go to that, I just want to note that these experiments would not be considered ethical according to today's sort of standards for respect for human subjects. But we still have footage from these early experiments and what they learned from studying these young children. So let's go to that video now.
To study the power of conditioning, psychologist John Watson used infants as subjects, as you can see in this original footage from the 1920s. Watson showed that strong emotions could be learned in one situation by conditioning and then generalized, that is, transferred to other similar situations without having to repeat the original conditioning. Watson and his assistant, Rosalie Rayner, conditioned the infants to fear a white rat that they had liked at first. In this case, they worked with an 8-month-old called Little Albert. Each time the rat was presented, a loud gong was struck, startling the infant. Soon the appearance of the rat alone was enough to make him cry and become fearful. This was classical conditioning at work. When the child crawled away from the rat towards safety, her behavior was rewarded in that her fear was reduced. Instrumental conditioning was now at work. Later, when the children saw any stimulus that was similar to the rat, a rabbit, a dog, a fur coat, a mask, their learned fear was generalized to all of them. The once fearless children were now easily frightened by a host of harmless things. Watson's pioneering study was controversial because of the way he used children. Such an experiment could not be conducted today because of strict ethical guidelines governing the treatment of all research subjects, humans and animals. A colleague of Watson's, Mary Cover-Jones, developed techniques for removing naturally conditioned fears in youngsters. Jones was the first behavior therapist, but these techniques came too late for some of Watson's subjects.
Okay, so you might have noticed in that John B. Watson video that they also mentioned another form of conditioning, and that is instrumental conditioning. So if you think about what we've been talking about so far, it's behaviors occur naturally, and then how can you build cues that trigger these behaviors? But there's tons of behaviors that never occur naturally. They have to be shaped. They have to be brought into existence. They have to be learned over time. And a really important process for that is what's known as instrumental conditioning. So instrumental conditioning is about what happens after you do the behavior and how does that affect the likelihood of that behavior happening again, and then how can those behaviors be pushed together over time. So just like dogs were really important for the study of classical conditioning, it turns out that cats were really important for the study of instrumental conditioning.
Yeah, that's right. And so Edwin Thorndike did some very classic experiments using cats to understand these sort of principles of instrumental or operant, also known as operant conditioning. And so what he did was he started out with what were known as puzzle boxes. So a puzzle box is a little cage, and you'd put the cat inside this cage, and the cage had all kinds of features to it. So it would have a lever and a pedal and a little wheel and a piece of string and a button, all kinds of different things that the cat could push or pull or whatever. And outside of the cage was some delicious milk. And the cat wants the delicious milk. And so the cat may be trying to get to the milk, but it doesn't know what to do. It can't see that any of these levers are attached to the door that opens this cage. So it will try things perhaps at random. And then maybe it does one thing, maybe pushing on a pedal, and the door opens, and then the cat can go and drink the milk. And then we put the cat back in the cage, and is it more likely to push the pedal again? And the idea is, yes, it is. And so this is the law of effect. The idea that an action is more likely to be repeated if it leads to positive consequences. So this links back to the thing we were talking about psychology in the news. If you do an action, you post something on Reddit, it gets an upvote, oh, that feels positive, it's more likely to repeat it. So really, operant conditioning can be thought of as the way we associate an action with its consequences.